Welcome to the Inside the Sales Playbook show, where on each and every episode, we dive into the actual sales processes, the plays, the strategies working for sales teams today. No high-level overview, no fluff. We get into the weeds of what some of the fastest growing and most successful sales teams are doing today to drive revenue and grow their businesses. And we've got two sponsors on today's show. The first is SalesKit. SalesKit takes the guesswork out of scaling your sales knowledge all on one great platform. No longer do you have to have your sales process, procedures, and sales knowledge in Google Docs, in drives, in various file folders, and 3-ring binders scattered throughout the office. SalesKit makes it easier than ever for your team to access the sales knowledge that actually works. You can get a free trial at getsaleskit.com. And we're sponsored by my book, Raise Your Standards, the definitive guide to building 7-figure sales. You can get a free copy of the book to help grow your sales, whether you're an entrepreneur, sales leader, or sales contributor at getsaleskit.com/book. And I'm your host, Mark Evans. And on today's show, we've got Mr. Kyle York. Kyle is a co-founder, a CEO, a managing partner. Man, this guy has just about done it all. He's seen a lot of businesses. He's the managing partner at YorkIE, where he sets the company's vision of building a vertically integrated investment firm powered by market data and analytics focused on growth, go-to-market strategy. Kyle works closely with entrepreneurs, operators, and investors to help them realize their shared ambition to build good companies, create new jobs, and grow generational wealth and impact the world. And he's worked with over 80 startups. And I'm really excited. I heard Kyle on a different podcast, and really excited to have him here on the Inside the Sales Playbook show. So Kyle, man, welcome to the show.
Pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, it's our pleasure to have you here. But how about you give the listeners just a little bit of context, Kyle? What is YorkIE, and how do you help your clients achieve their mission?
Yeah, absolutely. So YorkIE is the manifestation of many years of being an operator and a sales and marketing leader for SaaS businesses, married with many, many years of angel investing, advising, and doing boards for other SaaS businesses. So in September of 2019, we launched YorkIE. IE stands for Investment Enterprise. And you talked about it, but it's a vertically integrated investment firm where we obviously invest capital in early stage startups, but we also layer on advisory services for market and product strategy, business growth strategy, and Marcom services, as well as provide those as consulting or advisory engagements, depending upon what they want. And we're building our own proprietary fuel platform for marketing competitive intelligence.
Yeah, I saw that. I'm really excited about that and to dive into each element of that. But how about you take us back to kind of the beginning, man? How did you even get involved, and why the hell did you even get involved in entrepreneurship and the sales lifestyle?
Yeah, so I grew up in a family business. First job, first technical job was a sales clerk in a sporting good retail store called Indian Head Athletics in Manchester, New Hampshire.
Love it.
That my parents operated for 45 years.
Wow.
I say first real job because they made me like screen print T-shirts and heat transfer hats and sharpen ice skates probably before I was legally allowed to work, right? That's what family business is all about.
That's why you did it in the back of the shop, right? So that,
the basement, some inspector, the back of the shop, the little corner, yeah. But, really learned all about business and entrepreneurship from my parents. The generation before that was an athletic footwear manufacturer in Manchester, New Hampshire for about 40 years itself. So actually producing and making shoes long before the days of Nike and Under Armour. So it kind of grew up in a long lineage of entrepreneurship. And I ended up going off to college, business school, and ended up in tech as my first internship. Actually, my first internship was a market research firm. And then I joined the ed tech startup right in the early 2000s when software companies were transitioning from the license model to the SaaS model, and really, learned the technology game from my CEO and founder there, Travis Warren, and spent about 6 years for that company, but in sales and marketing roles, predominantly running West Coast sales. I moved to California for them. And then actually a high school classmate of mine had co-founded a company called Dine and was looking for their first head of sales and marketing. And back in my hometown, right, in Manchester, New Hampshire. So it was unbelievable.
Startup capital of New Hampshire.
Yeah, exactly. I came back. I never thought I would necessarily make it right back to my hometown and work in tech, right? I mean, I had been in Boston, moved to California, I'd sort of expected that would be my kind of game. And, was able to find this company. Wasn't sure if it was a great job to take. Wasn't sure I was that good at selling. Ended up being the chief revenue officer of that company. We took it to 100 million ARR. We sold to Oracle in late 2016. Unbelievable journey. Ended up becoming the general manager inside Oracle of the business unit. ran it for those 3 years, and until we launched YorkIE last year. So it's really my whole life. When I think of like entrepreneurship, I don't know anything else. Even inside Oracle, we were known as like the entrepreneurial rebel rouser, breaking barriers, trying to change the game and reorient, more top down Oracle approach to a bottoms up kind of go to market. And so that's just the nature of my career and my life, really.
I love it. Sounds like, they sent all the troublemakers your way and you were happy to take them on.
I really did. We ran a group called a product strategy team in Oracle Cloud, and every M&A that Oracle did, I think there was 7 of them. They moved all of the go-to-market and product strategy people all under my team. And It was just like the place where we all hung out and, commiserated, but also tried to, band together to make a dent on the company.
Love it. I love it. So Kyle, as I hinted before, right, you've worked with 80 startups. You're in an advisory role or on the board of several others as well. Yep. You've worked at some really fast growing companies as well. So what do you think makes a leader at a really fast growing company right now? Because there's companies that grow incrementally and that's great, but you've been a part of some really rapid growth companies. So what do you think makes a leader really good in those scenarios?
Yeah, I mean, you have to be incredibly adaptable, right? I think there's a DNA to an entrepreneur. Mark Roberge, a good friend of mine, former chief revenue officer at HubSpot, now an HBS professor, talks about the 4 archetypes of a head of sales. He talks about the entrepreneur, the enterprise gunslinger, the repeat manager, and I'm blanking on what the last one was. Do you know what it is? I can't remember.
No, I don't. I'll have to link to it though. I've heard this before.
There's the 4 archetypes of sales, right? And I was very clearly always the entrepreneur. I was the head of sales, but I also as CRO ran marketing and success and BD and corp dev and product. Like I had basically the outside game of the company. Yeah. But there's also people we hired over the years that were very clearly the repeat sales manager. Mm-hmm. They were really good at being a sales manager. You're really operational, very analytical, very good at pipeline management, forecasting, those types of things. And then you have the head of sales who's the best seller, right? The enterprise gunslinger, the one who's always winning the big deals, all that. The last one actually is the 4th one is the repeat VP of sales. Like they just do it. They go from company to company to company and they know how to do it. I think in a startup, in a fast growth company, you can be any of those 4 archetypes, but you need to know which archetype you are. And then you need to build complementary teams around you. So for me, the entrepreneur, I needed really good sales management underneath me, right? Because if I didn't have somebody who's sales operational, sales analytical, I could manage. We had a very bottoms up and digitally led inside sales model. So we high velocity, very analytical, win lots of deals at lower ARR per customer. That required obviously really, really good operations. So, first thing I did was hired a head of sales under me, under a CRO that was really good at that. Right. So part of that is self-reflection, knowing what you're good at, knowing what archetype you are, and then building the complementary parts in your sales organization to grow. But no matter what role you're playing in that, you just need the DNA to be able to adapt, evolve, iterate, change, grow, communicate really well. That's one of the hardest parts of a fast growth company is getting product and HR and finance and marketing and success and all the functions interworking means that you need to be a world-class communicator.
Yeah, I could certainly imagine that. I really like that with the 4 archetypes. And it sounds like the most important question that you're going to ask yourself is, well, where are you and where do you need to fill in your gaps? Asking who, not how, are we going to accomplish that? I really, really like that, Kyle. So what do you think, since you have seen so many companies, especially now, right, we're recording this in the last couple of months of 2020, what do you think is separating the good companies and the good sales-driven organizations from the great ones who are, going and just doubling in size from this year and using 2020 as a real launching point?
Yeah, I think in any startup or any fast growth company in the year 2020, it's the realization of and the definition of what your headwinds are and what your tailwinds are and how you're going to augment your strategy based on those. And I think what happened right at the beginning of COVID was that everybody looked at the headwinds and really focused all on the negative and focused all on how are we going to hunker down? How are we going to reforecast? How are we going to cut costs? How are we going to,
they play defense,
subsidies from government? Yeah, they play defense, right? And then I think the best ones turned that immediately to offense. And not all the tailwinds are obvious in some companies, but being able to look at the things that are working, or maybe the ball bouncing in your direction, and how to double down in those areas to grow. And so the best companies that I've seen are the ones that aren't too skittish in all of this. They've surveyed the field. They've got a really clear lens on those headwinds and tailwinds. They've opened up or found or ran towards the tailwinds, and then they're doubling down on them. So I think, again, this is different by vertical, by size, by industry, by market segment you're selling. But the best ones I'm seeing, like uniformly across all of them, are just finding the areas to drive momentum and investing in them to go harder.
I really like that. Yeah, there was that shift, right? Where, man, it seemed like those first 2 weeks in March, whenever that, like March 18th, whenever that shift happened, there was a clear distinction once we got to like April 1st, those that are going to go on offense, right? And are really going to make something happen to this, or those that like went into, to use a sports analogy, they went into a zone prevent defense.
Totally. And a lot of the early stage startups, I would say, first 60 to 90 days of COVID, hunker down, focus. Number two, once you feel like you got a good handle of that, focus on your 2020, 2021, 2022 top line and expense side planning, right? Number three, find those strategic things that maybe you put off, right? And a lot of companies, even if they haven't found tremendous go-to-market growth, I mean early stage SaaS businesses, have really made strategic investments this year, whether it's their messaging and positioning, whether it's their pricing and packaging strategy, whether it's their onboarding and user experience, whether it's their product portfolio or roadmap. Like, some of the best companies in our portfolio, when we look under the covers, aren't the ones that are just happen to be accelerating growth 100% plus a year. They're the ones who use the time to like really firm up the foundation of their business that will give them much more sustainability and staying power in the out years. And so I'm really anxious to kind of flash forward after this. A good example of that is a company in our portfolio called Weibo in Boston. They're like a user testing on steroids. They help you brands measure their web performance and traffic. And they spent a lot of time doing pre-live website optimization. So they have like a panel of testers who look at the platform or the pages that you want to launch before you go live. Well, that's really good. But guess what? You look at it once, you do it pre-live, and then you don't do it again. So they spent the entire 2020 now focused on how do you also do it when web pages are live, so you can iterate and optimize almost more like A/B testing or user testing. And so it's just a phenomenal shift for them because now they're a much stickier product. And I think they've given themselves a wider adoption path into the future. So that's just a good example of somebody who iterated. Go to market didn't exactly accelerate yet, but I expect huge things.
It certainly sounds like it. I like that shift too, specifically for that product. Let's transition and switch gears here a little bit, Kyle. So a lot of companies, I hear from CEOs and founders and sales leaders that training and onboarding is a real focus here for 2020 and will continue to be for 2021. Everybody wants to reduce their ramp time and increase the quality of their hires. What does a really good onboarding and training process look like at either companies that are in your portfolio or companies you've worked with in the past that have been really fast growing?
Yeah, so I think that's a really good point. I think both onboarding and also in ramp, decreased ramp, but also retention of sales reps is a huge thing right now because everything's going remote and reps can work anywhere, even if you're an inside rep or a BDR. It's completely changing the playing field of the types of companies you can work for. And so I think if you're not onboarding and ramping really fast and getting people to quota or sniffing quota or exceeding quota, you're also going to have really high sales rep churn if you're not careful, right? So the best companies that I see that do this is they really outline and define their onboarding process. And those onboarding processes aren't just contained to the sales organization. They're the ones that leverage product management. They bring in the founders. They find the long tenured sales reps, and they put together programmatic onboarding plans. It's really onboarding through osmosis, less than like course room training. But really, you learn a lot more, and especially in technology, when you're learning the markets you play in, the value prop you play in, the repeatable use cases of your technology, when you do that through osmosis of other reps, but also product people or founders or heads of marketing or other people in your organization. So those are the programs that I've been seeing work the best, regardless of scale company. Obviously, the bigger you get when you're onboarding classes, of 12 hires. You need to be a little bit more classroom setting and, boot campy.
Yeah.
But the best for me is when I see just open door policy, people coming to calls, giving the pitch, getting people fully honed. We actually are launching a sales course next month with the New Hampshire Tech Alliance here that'll be applicable to any startup. But it's basically a 10-course sales class on how to build a modern, well-oiled sales machine, and a lot of it does focus on some sort of the foundational elements to onboarding and collateral and the things that you need to make a salesperson and a sales organization successful.
Yeah, and I'm curious, does a well-run and well-oiled onboarding and training sales process, like the one you mentioned in the traits that you really like with that, does that change either your valuation, your excitement for looking at investing into a corporation? Does that kind of change your perspective?
Well, we're so early. I mean, I guess we're so early that, and one of the reasons we get brought on as an advisor or a consultant or an investor is because we know how to build go-to-markets, right? Yeah. So most of the time they're really, really immature or early or green in these areas. And especially in SaaS, I mean, most SaaS companies are founded by technical founders, right? Mm-hmm. It's someone who saw a market problem and had the technical chops to create it. So it's a lot of founder-led sales organizations that are trying to figure out how to get to the next level, right? Mm-hmm. So I'd say that's definitely the case there. I think when you look at like sort of value creation for a company, and you look at long-term financial models around company growth, they're 100% aligned to the question of, are you lead constrained or are you fee constrained? Like what is inhibiting your growth? Yeah. And typically the best companies alongside their quota model, where they're a B2B SaaS play, like where we focus, have a quota model that supports their top line targets with the appropriate quota coverage, the appropriate assumptions on ramp and rep retention and quota attainment and all that jazz, right? So it's very rare, I'll tell you, in early stage investing to see the maturity and sophistication of that. Our goal, obviously, going in really early, and the earlier we get in, the better, is to help companies when they go raise that big Series A or big Series B to be far more mature as go-to-market organizations to answer those questions for, the tier one VCs who are going to put $10, $15 million into these companies and take them to the moon.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Okay, I can appreciate that. Let's transition, since this is the Inside the Sales Playbook show. Let's talk a little bit about sales playbooks and successful sales strategy companies implement. Let's start first with, of the companies that you're either working with a portfolio, it sounds like they're maybe too small to use a sales playbook, but how about your company? Do you guys currently use a sales playbook and a sales model that you really like?
Well, first of all, no one's too small to use a sales playbook. I think it's just more of a competency question, right? Because I was a head of sales, and I'm the CEO of a company, we have a very strong sales-oriented culture and sales-oriented philosophy and sales playbook. So we've very clearly documented our lead funnel, our marketing funnel, all the way through to our sales process methodology and how we move things through the sales process from stage to stage, how we score percentage chances of close, how we do our pipeline management to forecasting, continually honing it. I mean, we're small in that our founding team are three. Me and my two co-founders do the majority of our selling, and we have one sales BD manager who helps us sort of organize and administer all the process. But we're closing 2 to 3 customers a month at an average of $7,000 a month. And like you heard in the podcast you listened to, I mean, we've gotten ourselves to about $1.5 million ARR, just modularizing out our services, selling them as monthly retainer, and treating it as SaaS, because we're building our Fuel platform that we plan on launching sometime next spring. That will be self-service, team, enterprise account-based, and then we'll layer these services on top. So our whole idea is, if we can create pent-up demand by launching the services first, launching the investments business first, build a very large community that will just feed our sales pipeline for us to continue to add sales reps and grow in 2021, 22, and beyond.
Yeah, I really like that. I think that's such a great model. I know in that podcast as well, they talked about it as well, that agency model. I think that's really, really smart. Is there anything you're doing right now, since you are in the trenches of sales? Is there any nugget or any sales strategy or sales play, let's call it, that you're finding a lot of success with that you could share with the audience?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think one thing that sales folks and sales organizations need to do more is get to the know.
Mm.
I think it's so unbelievable to me how many opportunities live in a pipeline that have no chance of closing. It happens over and over and over
The
again. And
phantom
so
opportunities.
this
Yeah.
is happening a lot to us where, we have a good opportunity, and you got to remember a lot of our inbound lead funnel is they want investment. Well,
Yeah.
we only invest in one deal a month, and we see about 75 inbound SaaS
Oh,
deals a month. So, we have to kind of filter through, and we don't want to say no to everybody because some of them should follow along with our content. Someday people should create a fuel account, right? Other times they might need some services. So it's a really delicate sort of, call it an MQL to SAL
yeah.
conversion, right? At the top of the funnel into the qualified sales op. And so we've been just working really, really hard at the stage of, is this an opportunity? And the stage of, should we, provide a scope or a proposal to determine whether or not this is a real opportunity or not. And for us, it's kind of binary, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's still services, and we've modularized and productized the services, but it still is services. You can pretty much tell if it's a good fit on the first call in the first 5 minutes, right?
Yeah.
And so what I keep challenging the team is to be honest. We have the ability to be flexible, patient, build out pipeline, build out relationships, be very consultative in our sales process. And it's okay to hear a no, so that you don't keep stuff kind of lingering out there. So I think that's the best takeaway I'd give right now. It's been really working well for us, and it also means that when you're okay with a no, you're not as pushy, and you're not chasing ghosts, and you're working real opportunities where you can provide real value to the market.
Yeah, when you're turning deals down like that, I think what it does is it alleviates that sales breath, right? And we've all been there where we experience where, man, this sales rep has to get quota here and they've got to close me or else, who knows what's going to happen to them. And I love how you do that. There's a lot of service-based industries that will listen or watch this and they hear, wow, Kyle and his team are generating 75 leads at this time. Walk us through some of the tactics that you're finding success with when it comes to generating top of the funnel activity.
Yeah, so I'll do that in a second. I wanted to acknowledge at scale how I think this still works. If you have sales reps who have intrinsic belief in your company and feel like they're a part owner of your business, they'll be more apt to get to the know quick and then say, but follow along on our newsletter. Maybe there'll be something you want from us later. Or, get a clear answer of when the technology or the service you're offering might be valuable to them. A rep who's playing the long game and not just chasing that month's quota is going to be a much better and more productive long-term rep for you too. So I think that's just a key point. From a top of funnel perspective, I mean, we actually one of the service modules we sell is called our Marcom service module, and what we enact is drumbeat marketing. So we basically, in essence, work with all of our companies, including YorkIE, and we establish our very clear messaging hierarchy from vision to mission to taglines to descriptors to boilerplate to elevator pitch, all the way down through value prop, market segment. Yeah. And then we come up with the pithy and disruptive points of view to create thought leadership content, both long form and micro form, to distribute across owned, earned, and paid channels. And this flywheel drumbeat marketing approach, which is literally beat the damn drum every single day. No one is actually paying attention to you. So keep on doing it until you really, really, really annoy yourself, right? So this strategy of brand creation from the ground up has really worked for us. We went from, an Alexa web traffic 8.5 million when we launched YorkIE. We're now down to 100,000, right?
Wow, that's incredible.
We're now ranked the number 30 on FeedSpot, the number 32 most traffic startup blog in the world. And we launched our company last September. Right?
That's incredible.
So all these things to me just go to show that if you create valuable content attached to the value proposition of your services and your technology, that more and more of a community will be built. And that's really what we're doing. We're building up what we call a minimally viable audience.
Yeah.
When we launch our technology platform, Fuel, next year, we'll have a minimally viable audience who's been kind of chomping at the bit to give it a whirl, right? As opposed to all of a sudden having to do outbound demand gen for someone they've never heard of, right? Yeah. So I think it's the inbound model, the digitally led model, the content rich model. But it's also not just long form webinars and ebooks. It's micro content and snippets and consumable pieces of content in any channel, whether it's RSS feeds or mobile or social or memes or blogs or, third party, quotes and articles, all these things. They may not seem it in the moment, they compound over the long tail, drive up SEO, and you end up with a really dynamic brand with a lot of leads to feed.
Yeah, it sounds like that's something that's not easy, right? I think so many people, they want that quick fix. Like, well, what are 3 keywords I just have to put into my AdWords platform, and then I'll automatically get to that 30-second ranking. What I really like about what you're saying is that drumbeat, right? And it has to be continuous. It's that compounding effect that happens not over weeks, not over months, but over years. And
it's obsessive. It's obsessive, right? I mean, like I wake up on Saturday mornings and I bang out 2 or 3 blogs. One might get syndicated on Forbes, another might get cut up into 5 or 6 quotes or memes for social media, another might end up on our blog, on our website. And our editorial team, we basically created a machine to do this for ourselves and do it for our clients. I also have the benefit of hindsight, right? I built a $100 million ARR brand, and this is how we did it, right? And so when you look back over, from 2008 joining Dyn to 2016 when we sold it to Oracle, I know it works because it worked, right? So it's kind of like one of those things that you need to have. I think it really, really works for the high velocity sales engine. So sort of when you're selling the developer, the practitioner, the individual seller, you need just more eyeballs knowing who you are and knowing what your value prop is to the market, right? Yeah. So sometimes in like the enterprise selling where you only need to win a deal or 2 a month and they're $1 million deals, it's a different strategy where it's less about inbound traffic and more about third-party validation, analysts, third-party press coverage, big partnerships. Still the same drumbeat marketing, don't get me wrong, but a little for a different purpose of garnering credibility in the market.
Yeah. And what I like about this model is I was reading yesterday, I forget what the exact number was, but it was something like, prospects, they reach out at the time where they've done like 74% of their own research, right? Well, if you're not controlling that narrative and exposing that information and your competition is, they've already framed how they solve that problem, right? Or they've already framed how they look at the world and the viewpoint. And it's so difficult to pull them out of that viewpoint and put them into yours if you don't have anything, if you just don't have the content, the material, the ammunition, right, to actually convince them to even check out and give your product a fair shake.
And this is why conversion on inbound is so much better than conversion on BDR outbound, right? If they're already coming to you, raising their hand, and they've studied you, your competitors, the market, you've put enough, education, curriculum, content to the world for them. By the time they get to you, they're already raising their hands saying, I'm a buyer and I've got budget and I've got a need and my timeline's this. Like that's a very, very different outcome potential than I have a bunch of BDRs hammering phones, calling people who have never heard of me. But even in that instance, right, that to me is marketing. Like the best BDR work is marketing. So the content in that email better be great. It better attach them to more value you can give them into your website. I mean, this is a 360 feedback loop that you need to be creating regardless of inbound or outbound, but it's why you see so much inbound being influenced by outbound and vice versa.
Yeah, I love that. Kyle, I think this is a good, let's transition to the final 5. So these are the 5 rapid fire questions. I'll ask, you answer. Are you ready?
Ready.
Awesome, man. All right. Favorite sales related movie?
Oh man. I love, I should have read, did you send me these? I'm sorry. I'm like totally blanking.
Don't worry about it.
I'm actually not even going to say a complete sales related movie. I'm going to say The Count of Monte Cristo. It's the best vengeance movie. And I feel like sales reps always have a chip on their shoulder.
Great story. Yeah, great one. All right. Favorite sales book?
I love the books by all the Aaron Ross books.
All the Aaron Ross books. You're not the only one. Okay. What do you know now that
actually at one of our Ballers Club President's Club trip back in the day?
No way. Oh, that's awesome. I bet that was impactful. What do you know now that you wish you would have known when you first got into sales?
It's not as slimy or sleazy as I think people first going into sales think sales is going to be.
Like it. Best purchase of 2020 under $100. Doesn't have to be business related.
Under 100, man, I can't say my Big Green Egg. That's been amazing for slow cooking meats. Sorry.
Let's use that one. Well, let's break some rules on that one.
I totally broke the rule there, but
That's a good one. All right, so your big green egg, yeah, that's a good one. For those that don't know, that is a barbecue, cooking, searing, you name it. You want to bake a cake outdoors on a grill, this big green egg can do it. It's pretty cool. Good catch
I
there.
also got the new Killers album. If you haven't got it, that's a great one, under $100. It's really great.
Awesome. All right, we'll link to that one too. Favorite social media follow? Again, doesn't have to be business related.
I love following the Morning Blitz. It's a sports version of the Morning Brew.
And where is that? Where could that be found?
Across all social channels at Morning Blitz.
Awesome. Kyle, if our users want to connect with you, if our listeners or viewers want to connect with you, where's the best place for them to do so?
Yeah, you can find me on social media. I'm KYork20, and YorkIE is at York Growth across all social channels.
All right. I'll make sure that we link in the show notes. Ladies and gentlemen, that's Mr. Kyle York with YorkIE. Kyle, thanks so much for taking us inside your sales playbook today.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.